today, 28th September, we're at the Gathering of Givers, reporting live from location. I always wanted to say that when I was... So I feel like today I've arrived, you guys. We are here at the Gathering of Givers. We're celebrating our generous spirit, and we're focusing on giving by young people. And I have a young guest with me today. She's going to tell us her name, and she's also going to tell me, when you think about a young giver, who do you think about? Like, give me a name and what they do. So go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Cherop. I am a youth young giver. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for the work that you do. You're very inspiring. Thank you. Yes, I am a mental health advocate, also currently the founder of the Semicolon Nation, which is a mental health organization currently working with people with lived experiences of mental health issues. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what we do. Besides that, I sit on the Africa CDC Youth Advisory Board. That's with the AU. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. When I think about a young giver, I think about there's a Kenyan lady called Wawira. Mm-hmm. She's the founder of Food for Education, mm-hmm. and they give food to school meals to school-going kids. I think that's really generous.
Wow.
Yes,
wow.
She inspires me too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. And tell me about Semicolon. That's such like a cool name.
Oh.
Yeah. How did that come about?
Okay.
Can you tell us a bit about that journey?
Yeah. So I struggled with mental health issues. I was diagnosed at just after campus. I was 22. I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and a little bit of OCD. But before that...
As in... Okay, because we don't
hospital.
feel these things of fevers. Like, there were symptoms, there were...
Yes, there were symptoms that led to the illnesses. Mm-hmm. So I lost both my parents when I was 5. Mm-hmm. My parents were bishops, so I'm very proud of that. Mm-hmm. They were fully in church, but unfortunately we lost them. Mm-hmm. And so it happened, I was still very young. We used to live in Nairobi that time. And then, so when they pass on, you know how the African culture is, they normally don't tell children exactly what has happened.
Yes.
You know, everyone knows what is going on. So I was left in the dark, moved to Uganda. I'd never been to Uganda before, though my parents were Ugandans. And now life started. I was in a totally new homestead from, living with family. And I didn't know where my parents were. And every time I would ask, they would be like, oh, they would come back. Mm-hmm. So I grew up like that, with an expectation of, that time it was quite hard because I was living with somebody that I'd never lived with before. Mm-hmm. And I experienced a lot of child abuse at that tender age. Mm-hmm. So it was quite tough until when I reached 9. That's when I really knew what death was. Mm-hmm. But I'm thankful that they introduced salvation to me at a very early age, because that's what carried me through, even through, the dark moments. Yeah. Yes. So I grew, and then later, because of what I was going through, I now moved in with my auntie, who raised me, actually, became my parent. But then, so that time when I was still young, going through all that, I developed childhood disorders. So I had sleeping disorders, I wasn't eating. I became so introverted. There was nobody I could talk to. I was the last born. I'm the last born in a home of 5. I'd not seen my siblings because all of us were, scattered around.
Different places, yes.
Yes. So the childhood disorders that I had, I didn't even know, grew in me. I had to deal with grief, but, life goes on. You have school, so life gets busy. Until when I finished campus, that's when now it really hit me, because now I was lucky that I got a job immediately, and so it kind of helped me a bit. But over time, it affected my work, because now I reached a point where it really hit me and I couldn't concentrate, and I ended up resigning. Yes. So it was really tough, but I even attempted suicide, but I'm thankful to God that He preserved my life. And so I went through the medication, luckily, went through the treatment, And I think it's now been 4 years, and I'm well. And now through that, I decided to start sharing my story, which I started in 2020 during the pandemic. I was still on medication, but finishing medication, and so I was very vocal about mental health that time. People didn't know what. Before I would talk about mental health, and people didn't know. But now when COVID came, people started, relating because they'd been home, people were dealing with anxiety and all that. And so, that's how the journey started. That was in 2020, 2021. I started being invited all over, and then I used to write. So journaling was my way of coping because I didn't know how to talk about things. So I decided to write, and I got a scholarship to go to the US to do a writing training. So I did that, and then I started, decided to write a book. But then I decided to hold back the book because I realized that there's a lot of I wrote the book, but I felt like there was a lot of work that I needed to do personally, in myself. And so I withdrew it back, and then went through now the whole healing, therapy healing process, because I can't testify, and yet I'm still hurting. I need to forgive people. I need to let go of certain things, and I decided to do that. And so it's been a process. Really got deeply into the mental health space. I got a scholarship with WHO, went and studied mental health, and now I'm back trying to, just still share my story, but also see what exactly I can share with the community.
Wow. And so when you think about Rebecca, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you too.
I can't imagine what it's like to live through all of that and to do the work, right? To undo all of that that you've lived through. It's easy to talk about in a 3-minute clip, but I want people to understand that it's a journey, a long journey. And how does that journey therefore intersect with generosity? What do you see? What do you do? What are the ways people are expressing generosity when bound with issues of mental health?
So I think one thing that I've really, and also something that I faced and still face, is the stigma that comes with, telling people you have mental health issues, and everyone's like,
I know.
Even till now, I share my story, and everyone's like,
are you sure you're okay?
Yes, are you sure you're okay? They kind of find it weird to associate with you. And I think there's a lot of work that we have to do. I love sharing my story, but it takes a lot of courage to actually do that.
It does.
But I'm grateful that I do, because every day when I go to sleep, I think about how there are people that have reached out to me, and they're at the end, but then they're like, I'm reaching out to you because I've read your story. I have a blog that I write, and I used to write that time. So sometimes I'm like, I know you're struggling, just read through my story. And they're so uplifted. They write back to me, and I think it's not that you have to do something so big, it's the little people, that small thing that you do that touches people, that changes lives. It could be one person that still speaks volumes. You've saved a life. I think that's really, really important. When I started sharing my story, sharing stories is very powerful, because I strongly believe that they change perspective. They also influence policy, which is really so I started doing that. And then in 2022 I was invited to speak at the Global Mental Health Summit, and it's through that I met the minister, and she was like, oh my God, I've been thinking of doing this, how can we do this together? And it's, currently we've been working hand in hand together, and trying to see how do we change maybe the different policies that we have to favor people with mental health issues. There's a lot that happens in the closed doors. You go to Metallica and people are struggling. There's just so much that we do, but that's just from one story. But then if we have so many people sharing their stories and sharing their journey, I think it can be very, very impactful.
Yes. And as we bring this conversation to an end, how does your organization work? Do you mostly rely on volunteers, or how are you funding your work? How are you getting resources for your work?
So we've actually done work with MCI before. So we mainly work with people with lived experiences here in Uganda, people who are still struggling, but also people who have success stories. Mainly that. I had gone to school. I'm now more into the mental health research bit. That's what it's now that I'm into. But at the community level, we're now looking at schools because there's so many issues that children deal with today. You might think they don't see, but they actually see. They do, and then it retains
in their bodies.
And somebody who, all these things started at a little age, I think children are they're vulnerable.
They're so easy to overlook.
Yes, they're very easy to overlook. So that's one thing that I really want to break, and just, create a space where you have them sharing, and you're teaching them about mental health, how to look after themselves, all that. And now we're putting in the sexual reproductive health bit. Just bringing in that to be more educative and impactful.
Wow. As we end now, for real what is your dream, what is your hope?
My hope, my hope is my hope is that everyone my hope is to see a very changed, a very aware, a society that is aware of issues, and a society that does not discriminate any person, whether it's color, whether it's anything, background. Let's not be discriminative. You just don't know why somebody is the way they are. You don't know why somebody is behaving the way they are. And so let's be very understanding. I feel like today, especially with the young people, we are very, we don't want to care. We, like sometimes I go on Twitter and somebody's like, guys, I'm going to commit suicide. And everyone is like, yeah, you can actually go on, yes, I see it on Twitter. And I'm like, no, this is such a sad generation that we're so unkind. So I'd want to see a kind generation that when somebody says that, there are people who reach out and they're like, no, how do we help? Because many people joke like that and they actually see meaning it. For them it's not a joke. It's not a joke, but to the world it's a joke. And those comments are very killer. And so I'd really want to see my generation, especially the Gen Z generation, a very kind generation, people who care about not only your own life but the country at large. And lastly, you asked me about semicolon.
yes.
So semicolon is the real semicolon.
Yes.
Full stop. So that means that your story is not over. It's not a full stop. Whatever you've been through in life doesn't define you.
The story is not over yet.
It's not over yet. There's still more. God is still writing your story. So
thank you. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story. And if we could all be kinder, is that asking too much, people? Seriously? And that becomes part of the way we celebrate and honor our generous spirit, just by kindness. Thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you.
And God bless you for the Rebecca, because I was just interviewing Brenda.
Yes,
Guys, it's tired. My tongue is tired. I am over and